Hey friends, this is the Mrs. Volfie from our Half Acre Homestead. I'm going to can this turkey. Now, unlike most people who roast their turkey before they can it, I'm going to pressure can it. And this is still partially frozen. And if you can see right here, this is a little tab of parchment paper that the giblets are in. And because it's parchment paper, I have no problem leaving it in there. If you roast the turkey first, and if you have to do it out of necessity, that's fine. But if you roast the turkey first, then you take the drippings and you make the broth, your meat's already dry from roasting. Here, we're going to put the water in with some vegetation, and we're going to make the broth and cook the turkey, and it's going to be wonderful. Now, I'll be right back when I get my vegetables together. Okay, here we've got garlic. Now remember, this, whatever fluid or juice comes out of this canner, I got things rolling all over the place. We're going to strain it and use that for the broth that we're going to can our turkey in. So we want the juice to be flavorful. So I'm going to put in 3 onions, one. Oh, and in the bottom of my canner, I have put in one of my racks. Now, if all you ever use your pressure canner for is canning, I advise you to give it a good scrub out with vinegar and water. Soap water and a vinegar water rinse, baking soda, however you want to do it. But make sure all your bits and pieces are clean, because more often than not, a lot of people will just go from one canning to the next without cleaning out their pressure canner. Okay, that's the onions. I'm going to put this whole, oh no, I'm going to save a couple for tonight's supper. We're having spaghetti. Oh my goodness. Okay. Whew. It's getting ripe in here with these onions. We're just going to pop in a whole bunch of heads of garlic, 3 whole onions. You saw I cut off the tops of the celeries, and I cut off the worst parts, and I rinsed them, and they're going in there. We're going to put in about, I don't know, a teaspoon of coarse pickling salt. And let's get this last bit of garlic in here. Now, like I said, I have a tray in the bottom. It has also been scrubbed. And because you don't want the turkey sitting directly on the burner, correct? So, and this is what's going to happen. This is how I can my laying hens too. Because they're tough, I don't can them raw, because they are, like, I don't raw pack them because they're just tough. But if you cook your meat in the pressure canner, it's going to come out wonderful. Now, we're going to add some water. And remember, folks, the water has to be cold. It has to start out cold. Now, you have to have at least 2 inches, but I'm going to put in more. Simply because we want that broth, don't we? Now, I have put in approximately a gallon of water. Okay? We're going to put some fresh ground pepper in there. Always the fresh ground pepper. And if you noticed, I used the coarse pickling salt. Why? Because it has no additives. All right. There's our turkey and the beginnings of our broth. We're going to put our lid on. And when the steam vents for 10 minutes, we're going to put a 10-pound weight on it, and we're going to pressure cook it for 75 to 95 minutes. All right, it's been venting for 10 minutes. We're going to put the weight on this, and as soon as it begins to jiggle, we're going to turn it down and allow it to process for 95 minutes. Okay, that is at a full jiggle. We're going to turn this down now to just between medium and maximum, and we're going to let this process now for 90 minutes. So I'm going to set my timer. here it is, folks. And if you'll look, that meat is just going to fall right off the bone. Isn't that wonderful? Anyway, I'm going to drain this when it cools down a little bit. And I'm going to debone everything, and I'm going to drain the stock and sieve it and use it for broth for canning our turkey. All right, we'll be back when we get to that point. Well, I tell you, folks, it's been a day. Dogs went missing. Dogs got found. I got a KitchenAid. I found out I had a fairy godmother today. I'm telling you. Now, here's that 14-pound turkey. And I got a bowl probably this big or bigger full of broth. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just dice this up in nice sized chunks. And the beautiful part about pressure canning, or pressure cooking, excuse me, a turkey, is look how juicy and moist that is. And you don't have to boil the bones to make the broth or anything like that, because it's already done. Let's take that skin off of there. It's already done. I mean, we put the water in, we put the vegetables in for the flavor and all that stuff. And here we've got a beautiful turkey breast that is just moist and juicy. All right, we'll be back tomorrow when I get this all. I'm going to dice this up tonight, and I'm going to put the broth and the diced turkey away, and we'll count. I have skimmed the fat off of this broth, and I just want to show you, before we get started with the canning, I'm going to heat the broth up that I drained off the turkey last night. Look at this, guys. It's just jelly. All right, we'll be back when I got this all set up and ready to can. Alrighty, folks. Now we're going to can our turkey. And here, this is a great invention, by the way, folks. Here's a jar fresh out of the oven. Now, I'm going to fill the jar with this paper towel. Let's bring the camera a little closer here now that you can. This paper towel has been soaked in vinegar. And I'm going to, now because my turkey is cold, I'm going to put a little bit of hot broth in the bottom of the jar first. Now we're going to fill, the reason I put a little bit of hot broth in the bottom of the jar first is because I don't want to put cold meat in a hot jar. I'm afraid the temperature will, it'll crack. Okay, so we're going to fill that to 1 inch from the top. Then we're going to take some nice hot broth, and we're going to fill that up to 1 inch from the top, a little bit more than 1 inch from the top, maybe another 1/4 inch, because once you debubble, that will go down. I better have a plate for that. Let's put that in a bowl on the stove there. And then we're going to take the handle of my spatula here, and I'm going to leave the funnel in while I debubble. It kind of helps from excess splashing on the edge of the jar. Okay. And I'm not going to salt this because if you remember when I cooked the turkey, I seasoned it, and that's the broth we did. So now this has vinegar. Now what vinegar does when it comes to canning meats, and I don't know why I haven't said this before, when it comes to canning meats, this helps stop the grease from hitting your edge and preventing a good seal. You don't want grease getting in between your seal. So we've debubbled. We're going to put this in the pressure canner, and we'll be back when the pressure canner is full. Alrighty, we'll be back when the canner's full. Okay, I got 8 pints, 8 2-cup pints, and there's over a pound of meat in each one. I mean, I just cram them full. One thing I hate about opening a jar of meat is opening it and it's more broth than meat. So I've just jam-packed these full of meat. And I don't know if I mentioned that I wash my jars in baking soda and vinegar and water and baking soda. I rinse them and I bake them in the oven at 210 to 215 degrees for a minimum of 15 minutes, and that sterilizes them. And I have simmered my lids in vinegar and water. I have some broth left, so I'm going to go ahead and can that up too. All right, we'll be back when the canner's full. Alrighty. We've got 8 pints of turkey and broth and 3 pints of broth. And we're just going to go ahead and put our lid on our canner. Alright. There, she's locked down. And we're going to let this come up to steam and vent for 10 minutes. And once the steam has vented for 10 minutes, and you have to allow a steady stream of steam to vent for 10 minutes or you won't push all the air out of your canner and you can spoil the job. And while that's coming up to steam, I'm going to have the last little bit of turkey and broth for my lunch. And we'll be back when the canner is ready for the wait. Okay, now my canner has been venting a steady stream of steam for 10 minutes. We're going to put the 10-pound weight on. And when that starts to jiggle vigorously, I'm going to turn it down until it's gently turn it down. You don't turn it down abruptly until it gives us a nice, gentle rocking motion. And then we are going to process these for 75 minutes for pints, 95 minutes for quarts. All right, we'll be back. Okay, it's just starting, but it's about to jiggle vigorously. This is something I want my niece to see because she just bought her first pressure canner, and she's not sure what gentle means and what vigorous means. This is, at this point, it's gentle, but it's got to come up to a vigorous jiggle before I can turn it down. That's a good vigorous jiggle. So now I'm going to slowly turn it down to just a little bit. About between, my stove goes from 1 minimum to max and 1 to 8 in between. So I'm going to turn it down to 8, and in a little bit I'll turn it down again to 7. I just wanted to show you, for the sake of my niece Bronwyn, this is a gentle rocking motion. Okay? It might be, it could be a little bit more gentle, but that's just about perfect. Alrighty. Our canner has finished. And now when you're opening your canner, you always open it away from you. Especially if it hasn't completely cooled down like this one, because the steam can get you right in the face. So you always open it away from you. Oh, look at that. That's just wonderful. There it is, folks. 8 pints of turkey in broth and 3 pints of broth. This is the Mrs. Volfie from our half-acre homestead. I love that pinging noise. Saying, if the meat in your freezer's getting old, cook it up and can it up. Bye-bye.